Like, at some point, we have to learn to live and let go. Let go and let live, or whatever the term is. But it's inevitable that people are going to change form. People are going to transition. And we have to embrace that concept. And instead of mourning, look at it as a form of celebration. Because in my thought, there's only up from here. I feel like either Earth is at its lowest level, lowest vibrational level, or it's in the middle. But either way, when someone transitions, they're only going up. No matter what religions believe that you're going to hell and all this other stuff, if you don't live right. And in Egyptian lore, they weigh your soul or your good deeds with your bad deeds, and if your good deeds or if your bad deeds weigh as light as a feather or whatever, you're able to transition into the upper realms or whatever the case may be. But I believe that it's only up from here. In one theory that I have. Another theory that I have, when I was thinking about a while back when everyone was sharing information about the Mandela effect, which that's another thing. But for those of you that don't know about the Mandela effect, basically it's an effect of something that was remembered by you a certain way, but by another group of people or by another individual, sorry about that, guys, or by another individual, might not remember it the same way as you, and they consider that to be the Mandela effect. And it's coined after Nelson Mandela, who some people believe died at some point in time. I can't remember the dates or whatever, but there was a point in time that he had died. Some people remembered him dying, and then there was another point in time where people remembered him dying. So that's how it was, that term was coined after that blip or glitch in the matrix, so to speak. But yeah, so it's selfish of us to hold on to that and to assume that someone is going to be here for forever. You know what I mean? And just changing the way and rearranging the way that you see that alone helps you cope. That's one way of coping. You know what I mean? So when I was going into the Mandela effect thing, when I was looking into the Mandela effect, I was trying to figure out how in the world something like that could happen. Like how a group of people could remember Kit Kat having a dash, the way it's spelled out on the wrapper, it having a dash, and some people remember it not having a dash. I don't even know what it is today, you know what I mean? But I always thought it had a dash. I'm not sure if it has a dash right now, you know what I mean? But I was trying to figure out how something like that could even happen. And it kind of goes hand in hand with the way that I view life and what this all is as a simulation or as a program, which we won't go into in this one. But if that's the case, then when you would have to assume that there's a shift that happens. You know what I mean? So in that thought, I started thinking about, what if death was like that? What if transitioning was like that? Like, what if every day we went to sleep and we woke up, the earth went through a shift, and in that shift, it was a form of evolution. So the frequency of the planet goes up, and there's certain people who aren't fit to live within that frequency anymore. So they transition. You follow me? So we end up gaining or losing, because again, we may be losing this person, but that's a selfish perspective on it. It's really a gain. And in reality, it's a gain if you look at it, if we're going through a shift, because that means that another density is gaining that spiritual form or that spiritual essence, or even maybe even the physical form of that being. Like, who's to say that when you go to sleep and wake up and there's a shift that happens within the earth, that individual that you think transitioned didn't even transition, that their life actually continued on, and now you started a whole new life without that person, because they no longer are on the same frequency as you, or you are no longer on the same frequency as them. Because it could go both ways. Like, what if they graduated? What if their vibration changed and their frequency went up, and they're no longer fit for the planet, and they actually transitioned into another, or they went into another density of reality? You know what I mean? So there's a lot of crazy ways to look at all this. But the point of looking at it this way is so that it helps you cope with what you consider to be a loss. Because in reality, there's theories out there that there are multiple variations of ourselves. So who's to say, let's say Fred the Godson, right? Rest in power to the guy, man. Let's just say he transitioned and everyone is feeling that loss of his transitioning. But he doesn't even know he transitioned. He actually elevated. Follow me? His frequency was so strong that he went up, and he's actually existing in a different world where all the same people are still there, but just on a different frequency, and we can't see him in this density of reality. Bear with me, because I know it sounds a little wild, but I'm basically saying that he could still be living on in the world that he knew, never knowing that he transitioned, because he only transitioned to us because we weren't on his level. Or vice versa. He continued to live on at the lower frequency that he was, which I don't believe, because he was high vibrational. But let's just say he was at a lower frequency and the planet went up a frequency and he was no longer fit for that frequency. But he continues to live on. There's still things, he's still rapping. He's still married. He still has his daughter. I don't remember how many children he has, but I know he has a daughter. People are still in ciphers with him. He doesn't even realize that he transitioned, and the people that are around him in that moment and in that reality still see him. So he didn't transition there. He only transitioned to us in this reality. So again, I'm only using this concept and this perspective, sharing it with you in order to help you possibly deal with your gains. You follow me? Just because we don't see an individual doesn't mean that how we've been taught is the reality of it. You know what I mean? So I just wanted to bring that to y'all attention. I also wanted to bring this to your attention, that we have to stop using the phrase good morning. Like, you know what I mean? I was taught a while back to use grand rising. Grand rising is what you should be using, or just use another term of endearment when you're seeing somebody for the first time early in the morning, whatever the case may be. But we shouldn't be saying good morning, because there is no good morning. We shouldn't be carrying the energetic signature of what morning means and then greeting somebody with morning. There is no good morning. That's oxymoronic. There's no good morning. You can't, no morning is good. You know what I mean? That brings you down levels. So we're all about raising our vibrations and keeping our frequency as high as possible. And those that don't fit into the circumference or in that auric field or in that realm of understanding naturally will be repelled. You follow me? So like I said, that's one way that those are a couple ways that I seen the passing of things. And it's tough because when you lose people, especially when you lose people that are close, and like I said, it's a game. We can't keep looking at it as a loss. But when you gain that perspective on what they consider a loss to be, right? You start to realize that it's only your selfish, again, I'll say it again, it's only your selfish need to hold on to this person because of the affinity or the relationship you had with this person. So you're assuming that they're going to be here forever. And that's not true. So it's difficult for me with having this higher understanding that I'm sharing with y'all when people are talking about transitioning, aka death. You know what I mean? Because I don't see it the same way. So I find myself distancing myself or not really saying too much and feeling bad about not saying too much to individuals about it. You know what I mean? Like, because, you know, when people are going through what they're going through from gaining that loss, so to speak, right? There's not much you can say. And especially if you see it the way that I see it, because again, I don't see it as this bad thing. I think there's a lack of understanding in it. I think there's a selfishness in it. And I think that we just need to come together and recognize the celebratory aspect of it. You know what I mean? Like, who's to say that it's not a graduational thing? Like, who's to say that another idea is, who's to say that people pass when they've done what they came here to do? You know, just because you feel like it wasn't their time doesn't mean it wasn't their time. You know what I mean? And sometimes when things like that happen, it's to trigger other facets of reality. You know what I mean? Sometimes what's considered to be a loss actually triggers other gains in a plethora of ways that you can never understand because of the way this thing is constructed. You know what I mean? Someone else's, how they perceive the loss to be, might trigger them to do something that they never would have done had they had not had the loss. You know what I mean? Some of that is a spark. Some of that sparks other individuals to do great things. Some of those things are connected to instances that are beyond our control and help us cope for the future. You know what I mean? I remember losing one of my cousins. I was really, really close to him, and a lot of my guys were close to him. And when we lost him, it was devastating. And it was my second, I won't say my second real loss, but it was the second one that hit me at the capacity it hit me. And it hit me probably the worst out of every person I've ever lost. So by the time I was able to gain a higher perspective on that particular loss, by the time my grandmother transitioned, I had a different way of looking at it. So till this day, I've never really mourned over my grandmother, so to speak, in the traditional sense of how most people do, because of my overstanding of what I think transitioning is about. Like I said, you die every day you go to sleep and wake up reborn. If you go to sleep and wake up thinking, feeling, and acting the same way, then you didn't die. Simple as that. I die every day. You know, there's people that watch, I know that there's people that watch these videos and have known me damn near my whole entire life, and they're like, wow, this dude thinks this way, or they've known I've thought this way, or they remember a way that I used to think and now I'm thinking this way, and they're like, yo, this dude is always some people could look at it as contradiction, like, you know what I mean? And it's not, contradiction doesn't exist in that aspect, because that would mean everything stays the same. You know what I mean? Every cause has an effect. So if the one thing I can say about myself is my core morale and my moral compass will always stay the same, but my perspectives will always change. The way I move will always change. The way I see things will always change. The way I act will always change, because I'm subject to change, because I'm energy. You follow me? So remember, my light is brilliant. Death is transitioning. You only die when you go to sleep and you wake up reborn. Stop using good morning, use grand rising, or use some other term. Create your own term. What else we got? That's it. That's all I got for you. My light is brilliant, and remember, no fear is the bridge to absolute freedom. I'm almighty. Peace.